Hello. And the question that we want to answer today, how can we create better solutions for people problems today? And how can we bridge the gap between people, technology, and business? Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Live, a show about people, innovation, and tech. I'm Mazor, Kario, innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And today with me, I'm so happy to have Milan.
Hi.
Milan Guenther, a partner Enterprise Design Associates and a author of Intersection, a book about enterprise design. And I'm very happy to have you here with me.
And I'm happy to be here.
So I know Milan from Google, from the program, and we met so many times in the past and we've done things together. And I'm so happy to have him here because he's smart and nice and he has a lot to tell us. So I'm very happy that he joined us. So let's start with what are the factors that leaders should address when they handle change? What do you think?
It's a good question. I think it's a question that is on everybody's mind right now because so much is changing. So we found that...
Just a minute, whoever sees us, not right now on live, it's the COVID crisis. So this is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We'll see if people forget how fast people will forget. Yeah, so we found that in businesses especially, but also other enterprises, you have a lot of talk about what's our strategy, what's the market, what do they want, what's our product, and how can we lead people and so on. And all of those questions are very important, but we found that especially when things go wrong, they tend to be a little bit, like they treat the symptoms, not the underlying root causes. And the underlying root causes that can be more substantial questions like, who are you really? Like, what is all of that about? And how do you make it happen? And what's the outcome for people? And if those three questions are misaligned, then you can lead and product market fit and innovate and all of that, all you want. It will not fit together and it will not go anywhere.
Right. So it's like ask for the top question before you ask for the tactics. How do we do it? First, why do we do it? And what is the aim that we are doing it for? And you see many companies asking the tactics. What are the plans that we're going to do? What are the products we're going to ship? So forth. And how can we solve it before? What are the causes for it? And, like today, we see so many things shifting. And how do you see this crisis touching the hearts of innovation leaders and doing the change that we want to have in in companies and for leaders?
Well, it's kind of you could say it's even like a schizophrenic situation because on the one hand, innovation was treated in the past together with digital and these kind of fields as something, important. People say, wow, it's so important. And we have a department and we put money in it and we acquire startups and so on. But, the actual impact of this, I saw a figure recently that digital only accounts for about 5% of large companies' revenue these days. 5%, so it's not a lot.
No.
And so I think many people have treated this as something they want to be seen doing and be associated with, but not really changing so much actually. And now they are like, oh, we don't have time for this anymore. The world is falling apart. Our business is breaking down. Okay, let's strip the innovation budget. And that's in a time, and that's what I meant is schizophrenic, where innovation is kind of the only way out. You have to change something and renew something. And I'm not meaning innovation in the sense of innovate or inventing things that are completely new for the planet, but really doing things a different way yourself in your enterprise.
Right. Because everything is changing. You don't have any other options just to change with it. If you don't, you will not be here today, like in the future, in any case. So what is the most powerful way to overcome this business crisis? What would you tell leaders to do?
Well, we usually look at as I said before, like, who are you really? Why do you exist? And what can you do? This is a concept that comes from enterprise architecture called capabilities. And it's very central to what we do. So what capabilities have you built using your assets, using your knowledge, using your people, using your data and your information and your processes and all of those things? And this is something that in many innovation methods is kind of ignored. You know, you pretend to be on a green field, you pretend to be a startup, and you're like, okay, what great ideas do we have, and what might people want? And we found that the opposite actually helps. Look at what can you do today, what do you have, and can you repurpose any of those capabilities for something else, something that is needed right now. You know, you have the obvious examples, of course, of people turning pizza ovens into cleaning facilities for masks because heating cleans them. So you have an existing capability and you repurpose it for something that is needed right now.
Yeah, I think that in general, you see people interested in doing new things when they think about innovation. It's like, how can we be entrepreneurs and like startups? And actually, you could start with your strength as a company. What you're saying is like you have so many capabilities and strength you can start with, and you need to utilize them, because this is like you have your clients, you have your connections and your net of maybe suppliers, and you need to use it as a company, and all the experience and knowledge that you have and all the capabilities you already have is a very good start. And when companies want to go like to go to the market and think about the competitors, and they might be maybe younger or startups, or they don't have these resources, so it's like your advantage. So you need to learn. So how do you map it? Like you come to a company and you need to map all these capabilities so they can use it, right?
Yes, exactly. The problem, of course, is that different people have different views on the enterprise. There are some people who look at it as a group of people, and they are thinking in terms of the organization, often the org chart, so the formal hierarchy. And when they say, okay, we need to change, they think of new roles, new responsibilities. There are other people then that look at it more as a machine, like IT systems, ERP, CRM, you name it, and information flows and data. There are people who look at it more like products and services. So what are we making, for whom? There are people who look at it more like numbers. How do we know we are successful? All the reports, all the metrics, and so on. And all of those people are right. It's all of those things. So the challenge is really to find a way to kind of reach a level of abstraction where you can map what we can do based on all of those things, without losing ourselves in the details of all of those things.
Which is hard. Which is hard, especially when you go into the numbers. It's really easy and tangible. Just go into the numbers. What's the KPI? How do we reach that? And that's it. Which is really easy.
Exactly.
And when you're talking about people, which is the most complex part of the equation, it's really hard to predict, especially right now when there's so uncertainties and so many things that you don't know. How can you predict how will people in your employees? It could be your leaders, it could be a client, whatever. It's harder to predict. And maybe harder to train and change, maybe, because you can change the numbers and the resources that you use, like you put more money, but it's much harder to change the way people think, right? So it seems like.
Yeah, well, I would say yes and no, because on the one hand, you're completely right. Like the complexity comes from the fact that the enterprise is comprised of people. Inside the legal boundary, but also outside, and so we depend on partners and customers and investors and so on. And all of those people have power, and they will influence, and they play the little games and so on. But on the other hand, you have many people who come from the I would say rather organization design, organization development, change management kind of direction, who seem to work from the idea that if you change what people have on their mind, you change the whole thing automatically and everything else will follow.
Right.
And that leads to these exercises, where for example, you print calendars or cups that say, we are creative or we are agile. Because you're coming from that assumption that if you do that, if you make people think that, then everything will change. And in reality, nothing changes. Because a lot of the things that influence what we do are, kind of subconscious and in conjunction with our environment. So you have to kind of change the environment in order to change the way we behave. And that environment includes, for example, let's say you work for 10 years with the same ERP system, and that has a process, and that process has 15 steps. If you don't change these 15 steps, humans will adapt to what the software tells them. We see that again and again. People buy these big installations, or companies buy these big installations of systems, and then people adapt to the system, not the other way around.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see we have an audience here listening. I would like to invite you to ask questions. We will be happy to answer and think together with you. So what you're saying is that companies sometimes have multi-factors that they need to take into account, and that's what makes innovation harder, especially when, in crisis, most companies go back to their core systems, core services, core products, and they say, okay, we know how to make money from that, and this is how we do it. So let's try to invest more in what we know than the unknown, which is frightening, I would say. Do you see that in companies, like going a few steps back in innovation?
Yeah, I mean, basically what happens normally to a group of people in this kind of crisis is a process of being surprised, being taken aback, and then kind of you could say even like being in shock.
Yeah.
So initially they will not be able to do anything really, except maybe to do some quick reactions that are almost like reflexes. And this is and it's like a tunnel, like an organizational tunnel vision. You don't see the big picture anymore. You don't take the time to reflect and to actually make sure that you take into account all those different things that you might need to. Instead, you are like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. And often you don't do anything. And I think only after, accepting that this is the way it is now, and finding again often I think our job today often starts with re-engaging the team who are sitting at home. Not sure, if they still have the same job and for how long they will have it. And instilling or inspiring the sense of, okay, you know what, we are a team and we have an ambition, and this didn't change, but it might have shifted. What is this new renewed ambition, and what do we have together that we can base on to be successful in this situation?
Right. Yeah, I think that what we touched right now is the fact that people, when they are afraid, they have like two options. One is like to be closed and be afraid and not do anything because maybe it will pass and everything will come back to what it was. And the second one is like, let's see what can we do, and maybe let's be curious what could be done. And I think that most companies are most people, it's not connected even to companies, and leaders are people. They think about what is like, how can we minimize the bad effect of what's going on. And, I'm writing a book. It's called Harness the Wind of Change. And I'm talking about the fear, which is like something that always interferes with changing and transforming things and innovation, because you want to keep what you have and you don't want to learn new things and you don't want to try. And when you try new things, you might fail, or you will probably maybe most of the time you'll fail. And now, like, if it's all complex and unknown, why would we need another unknown thing, which is like a new system and new thing that we're going to do? But most research that was found in the past crisis found out that if a company decided to innovate inside the crisis, that had an advantage afterwards, which really makes sense to me, right?
Yeah, sounds like an excellent book.
Yeah, it's McKinsey report. It's not me, and yeah. So the fact that people are afraid, it's like, this is what it is. We cannot say we're not afraid, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Even the leaders who say, hey, yeah, we're going to go in this direction, they really don't know. They could either stop or try something else. But for sure, everything is changing. That we cannot argue about that. The way we work has changed. The way we do business and sales has changed. The people that we're selling to probably have changed. So we need to really think about what's the meaning for that. And I guess that when we're thinking about enterprise design, there are so many changes that there are inside the enterprise only by the fact that we are working from distant and we're not in the same teams and working together or eye to eye. So there are so many challenges out there.
Yeah, I mean, we have been working in this space now for 10 years, and one of our first clients was a team in Philadelphia, working for a big German company. And we met them only for the first time, only after working with them for 1 year already, daily, in their morning, which is about 2:00 in the afternoon European time, very convenient, having the first meeting.
Yeah.
And so they were completely remote already, 10 years back, or no, like 7 years back. And for them, and I think many companies, had this kind of culture, but not all of them. And those who didn't were kind of completely surprised by the new situation, and we're like, oh, how do we work together now? All the rituals that we have been establishing over so many years are gone. Right. While if you had the remote culture already, then you're like, yeah, well, let's just continue like before.
Right.
But that's just how we work together. Then of course, is what you are doing, does that still make sense?
Right.
and that's a completely different question.
Yeah, but that's a question that is relevant always, maybe now more than ever, but it's always relevant to think why we're doing something and not how all the time. Although most of the time you're asking how, like you're more in the tactics than in the strategy most of the time, right? But you need to do strategy from once in a while, that's for sure. So tell us about a use case from one of your clients and how enterprise design helped him go through hard times or his challenges.
Right. Yeah. So a while back, we worked with a big car manufacturer, and it was a crisis, not like the current crisis, like not a planetary level crisis, but a crisis for them, which was a lot like quality issues, recalls, declining revenue, and so on. We managed to at the same time, work on re-engaging employees, tell the story again, which is a very inspiring story of who they are, what makes them unique, and so on, and on what values have been instilled by the founder when the company was created. But then also at the same time, what do people do all day? What are the most important tasks? And what are the most pressing business problems that they are facing in all the divisions and so on. And then running, and I know you know the concept very well, running a series of enterprise design sprints to address both at the same time. So not treat the transformation of the company into something more digital, more service-oriented, away from just producing cars, or just the disengagement of the employees and the fact that everyone was looking elsewhere, or the business problem of how do we make money in the future. Those three things, not treating them as something in isolation, but treating them as symptoms of a system. We often see these days enterprise design as applied systems design. So you have a system, it shows certain symptoms, like can be, and those symptoms can be bureaucracy, or it can be a failing customer service, or it can be disappointed employees, or but those symptoms are, you can't treat them like, you can't just put patches on them. You have to look at, okay, why is this happening, and then find the right intervention, find the right lever to change, make the whole thing behave in a different way.
Yeah.
And that can be surprisingly different, that lever, from the symptom that you are seeing. And and that worked quite well in that case.
It's like a few things. One is like connecting a few dimensions which are usually not connected. Like people from HR will not talk with people from R&D, from technology. So each one of them is responsible for something else. So it's like three different aspects. And the second one is like going from bottom up. So going from the people, not from the leaders who understand the strategy and then leaving it to draw into the hierarchy, but going from the people, understanding, and then joining forces, which is another thing.
Well, I have to say we had CEO support, so that was quite important.
Yeah, it is important. Yeah, that's for sure. It's always important, because if you don't have the power to do anything, like you can have lots of circus and dances around, but it will not come to be a full solution. And in many cases, you see innovation, like people want to innovate, but they don't really have the agreement with the C-level to really do it. It's like you can play in the small court for the kids, right? And it's connected to what you're saying about this 5%, because in many industries they are not digital. And they're not making money from digital connection or applications or a service or whatever, and that's why they see it like something which is like a bit to the side. But when you're thinking about innovation as a value for people to work within all the industry, with all the people in all like people from HR, people from product, people from service, people from support, whatever, they are all working together. It makes their results have more value, actually.
Yeah, and part of the problem, of course, is that the way companies are structured today, or any institution, is based on the idea of division of labor or division of concerns, so an HR person doesn't have to think about marketing because it's not their concern.
Right.
But then you find that maybe the product success is hampered by something that you identify as a people problem. So in theory, it might be in HR's purview, and overcoming. And we found that the only way really to do that is to map it out. And we are using a technique called the Milky Way that has been invented by our friends from IRM Sweden, Annika Kleiber. That is, and you asked before, how do you map these capabilities? So we found that if we look at the system, usually there's a pulse, like the system oscillates. In crisis, it oscillates more than in usual operation. And if you find that pulse, that can be the fiscal year, or it can be a season if you work in tourism, or it can be, like kind of a complete cycle of going from what do we want to do to doing it, delivering it, figuring out whether we had success or not. And if you take that as the common anchor point and you put everything else around it, the people, the capabilities, the information, the decisions, the metrics, the numbers, and everything, then people suddenly have something to relate to and to talk about. And they can say, okay, yeah, I'm here, you're there, this is the link, let's work on this together. Without it, it's very difficult, because then it's very abstract, and it's very and people have their notions of the boundaries, which can be different.
Yeah, I think that in general, what the design could help, like innovation with, is something tangible that you could relate
Mm-hmm.
to, and this is the power of design in general. And when you are trying to do things, to get everyone involved, they need a focal point, and if they don't have
Mm-hmm.
this same focal point, how can they relate to each other? And once you have this kind of a blueprint or a map, you could relate to it and give your inputs and understand and maybe change it if you think you should.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important. So so what is the most surprising thing you learned about innovation from years of experience?
Um, well, I think mostly that it can come from anywhere. Like you can find something unexpected inside, deep inside. When you do your exploration or your scanning of what this enterprise looks like or what it has and can do, and then you can make very rapid progress. I think I came to this with the same designer bias, I would say, that we all have if you're coming from that direction, which is we need to be inspired, and we need to look outside, and we need to get like, outside the box and so on. And
Right.
often it's like the box is not actually the company or the department. The box is rather um, your it's like a mental construct you make yourself, and you can and if you allow yourself to look very deep inside the box, you can find innovation there actually.
Right, right. I totally agree what you're saying. It's connected to what we said about strength. So you have so much inside. You need to understand what that means and how can you utilize it. But first, you begin with that and then go outside. And when I read Sally Beans, she had an observation that isn't it easy to slip into mechanistic language, isn't it? Milan talks about not treating systematic language, and then finding the right lever, the machine language that we're talking. Like it's really going into something which is very like tangible, like a machine that we need to fix all the parts together and find the right like switch or lever to find. So thanks, Sally, for this observation. And I agree that in many cases, once we have the language or the story or we see it in front of us, we can relate to it and then maybe find ways to do it better. But in many cases, when every department and every section is a part, it's hard to get them connected and make them work together. Although they're all together in, like, you cannot work in the product without people, you cannot have people without finance and so forth. So it's not like separated. And we know that the move from silos to groups and networking together and doing things together is something that we see all of the time, and flattening this hierarchy all the time. And you see it's connected to what you said about enterprise design. So what is the number one tip you would have for innovation leaders?
Find the people who know a lot about your operations. Can be the enterprise and business architects, can be people working for the COO. I guess people that you usually don't talk to so much, and work with them on such a map of what the enterprise looks like today, and identify where are the sweet spots between things that you see outside, like market needs, trends, and so on, and the things that you find inside. Like make that link, and don't treat your enterprise as a startup.
Yeah,
if it isn't one, if it is a startup, then treat it like a startup.
Yeah, I guess. I think that many companies are struggling. Like they want to be like a startup, but they're not. They have other people and other methods and other way of thinking, but they know they need to change, but they don't know what part could they take. Not even what is the right thing, but what could they really implement inside their organization if they wanted to do it. And another thing that Sally is saying, that she really liked your dip inside the box thing, which is like most people will say, yeah, well, let's be creative, out of the box, let's think outside of the box and so forth. Like And many companies really sometimes forget to start with what they have, which is, I think it makes sense. But sometimes they are sticking to what is current, like it's something that you cannot really change. And that's the problem. Like you need to take it as a power and then use it. And not just say, like, this is what we have and that's it. Like, that's the structure. It's just to understand what could be done in order to make it better. That's what you're saying. It's not like
and it's funny, Sally's comment about machine language, because on one hand we can't treat enterprises as machines because of all the people inside. On the other hand, we now have machines inside the enterprise or around it, AI and so on, that behave in kind of unpredictable ways. And we find that, they are biased and they create more problems than they solve, or so it's an interesting point about machines because also the ways we deal with machines is changing.
Right. I think that in general, what we've done, like the shift as I see it, like when I started, it was all about the technology and about the machine. So we were just there to use it. And sometimes we were called to when like the company's done everything and the product was whole and perfect from their side. And there was like a small problem with the people using it. They didn't know how to use it. So the problem was with the users, not with the machine. And it moved to the other way around, that we understand that people, either the employees or leaders or the end users and customers, they are the one that we should relate to first. And it could be within the box, like your employees, your experts, your knowledge team, like who understand this problem best, and to gather more people and get them all involved in solving that. Not only the smart guy or the R&D. Let's say it's not only the R&D people doing which is very important.
That turns the innovation leader challenge into a real leadership challenge. You have to kind of create a movement around it and not treat it as another department or another separate team or another project.
Right. I totally understand what you're saying. So it's been such a pleasure talking to you. We could do it like for hours and hours, and we've done it. So it's like something that practically has been done. So if somebody wants to know about enterprise design and to contact you and ask more, where would they find you?
Well, you can go on enterprisedesign.io. There you find our framework. We are also this year creating a non-profit association to create the next version of that toolkit and bring together all the enterprise designers worldwide, which can be from different backgrounds. You can be an analyst, a consultant, a designer, researcher, we are currently working on, of course, a pivoted event format. We have been running the Intersection Conference for the last 6 years, and now the 7th one will be surprise, mostly remote. Yes, but we turn it into more of a learning format. So people who want to learn how to do enterprise design can join there. And we're also working on a book for patterns for doing enterprise design, because we found patterns being something that you can easily adopt regardless what your background is. Just get in touch, join the Slack, and be involved in the creation of this. So it's an open invitation.
Yeah, as part of what you're doing, I would like to invite everyone who's interested in doing new things and change and challenging what we're doing and innovation, just to contact Milan or enterprisedesign.io and do it much better than what we're doing right now. So I want to thank you, Milan, for being with us, and thank everyone who's listened and viewed us. And
thank you so much, Adi. I really enjoyed this.
Next time we'll do it in Israel.
Yes,
we should. Okay, Milan is visiting Israel more than most people. And I really enjoy coming visit, and I hope it will be really soon. So thank you, Milan.
I hope so too.
And thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.